Kennan Dutton SCOB is a retired South African police officer. The dominant theme in his career was the investigation and prosecution of people guilty of committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. During South Africa's apartheid era, Dutton's work took place in South Africa as well as abroad. In South Africa, he helped expose the apartheid military's destabilization machinery, and later headed the Scorpions, the country's elite police force. He also worked with the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. Nelson Mandela personally thanked him for his service. Uncovering the Third Force Trust Feed Massacre. Dutton, with his teammate L. Wandle Wilson Magadla, solved the case of the Trust Feed Massacre, a massacre in a village of supporters of the African National Congress in the township Trust Feed in Natal in December 1988. Taking on the system they worked for, Dutton and Magadla sent a prominent policeman Brian Victor Mitchell to prison for this in 1992. The first senior policeman during the anti-apartheid struggle to be tried and sentenced. Subsequently, his superiors Ronnie van der Westhausen and Christo Marx discouraged him and dissolved his unit. But Dutton continued to expose the involvement of the apartheid-era South African police hit squad's so-called Third Force involvement of the South African Defence Force in destabilizing large areas of South Africa. Eugene de Kock. In 1992, on the recommendation of Jacob Zuma, Richard Goldstone appointed Dutton the chief investigator for the Goldstone Commission, a judicial commission looking into political violence. This led to the exposure of the workings of the Third Force, and the imprisonment of Security Police Colonel Eugene de Kock, known as Primeval. Goldstone said of Dutton, "He is a man without strong political feelings but with a deep belief in the need for complete integrity in police investigations, regardless of the consequences." Quote, Magnus Malin. In 1995, Dutton became the head of the Investigation Task Unit of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He investigated and arrested the former Defense Minister Magnus Malin and 10 former military officials in connection with the 1987 KwaMakhutha massacre. Renamo affair. Dutton exposed the shadowy relationship between the Special Forces of the South African Defence Force and Renamo rebels in Mozambique. He showed this is continuing for many years after the non-aggression Gimati Accord was signed between South Africa and Mozambique in 1984. 3 of the accused, Brigadier Cornelius van Niekerk, Brigadier John Moore and Colonel Cornelius van Tonder, were directly involved in coordinating support for Renamo in direct violation of the Gimati Accord. The atrocities committed by Renamo were described by a United States Department of State report as being worse than those of the Pol Pot regime in Cambodia. The cost of South African-sponsored wars of destabilization in Angola and Mozambique has been estimated by the Southern African Research and Documentation Center in Harare at more than $1 million lives and between $45 billion United States dollars and $60 billion United States dollars since 1980. On the hit list. In working to uncover the workings of the Third Force, Frank Dutton was placed on the South African police hit list, and several attempts were made on his life. He was advised to flee the country, but returned despite the danger to ensure justice was done. Investigations in the former Yugoslavia. In 1994, on the recommendation of Richard Goldstone, chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, Dutton successfully applied for a post with the United Nations in the investigation section of the Office of the Prosecutor for that tribunal at The Hague, Netherlands. In this role, he worked with detectives from more than 90 countries and proved himself to be a world-class detective. In 1995, He was promoted to head of the court's investigating mission in Sarajevo. He was again promoted to commander of field operations in Kosovo in 1999, when Director of Public Prosecutions Bulelani Ngcuka asked him to return to South Africa to set up the elite unit, the Scorpions. Setting up the Scorpions. In 2000, before his retirement, he set up the Scorpions, the Directorate of Special Operations, modeled after the American Untouchables and Federal Bureau of Investigation. Dutton was at the time the only member of the organization with a public image, and gave it its motto: loved by the people, feared by criminals, respected by peers. This once again placed him in the firing line. After retirement, in October 2007, Dutton was selected to serve on the panel to review the case against Police National Commissioner Jackie Selebi. In October 2011, Seychelles Police announced that Dutton has been appointed to create an elite police unit against serious crime there. On Freedom Day 2012, Dutton was awarded the Order of the Baobab in Gold, with the citation, for his exceptional contribution to and achievement in his investigative work as a dedicated and loyal policeman, for exposing the apartheid government's third force, for his role in working for peace in KwaZulu-Natal, his international work in investigating and exposing war crimes and crimes against humanity in Bosnia, Kosovo and Darfur, and assisting in establishing the causes of violence in East Timor and Sudan. He receives this honor at the same time as his longtime friend L. Wandle Wilson Magadla, who received it posthumously. In September 2015, Dutton was appointed to the National Planning Commission of South Africa.